My middle school brothers and sisters. How are we doing tonight? Sounds pretty good. Do you guys know what I did today? I got up at 7 a.m. and I sat in a business statistics Zoom for an hour and 40 minutes. It was horrible. And I do it every Wednesday. It was awful. I don't even know what hypothesis testing is. I don't care what a null hypothesis is. It exists. I guess I know that. And then after that, I went to a managerial accounting class. And I did relevant costing for an hour and a half. And then I drove an hour and a half through traffic to my favorite part of the day so far, just hanging out with you guys. And all you need to do for that is to be here and to listen. So, well done. You've already done your job. So my name is Brandon. I'm a ministry intern here at Woodridge Church. I've actually worked at Woodridge for 5 years. When I was in 7th grade, I started working events in the kitchen back there, washing dishes. But now I'm an intern, and this is the second out of a 2-week series that I'm doing called The Big Picture. And we're talking about how sometimes in life, it's easy to focus on one small part of the story and miss the rest of what might be happening and why that might be happening. And today there's 2 things that I want you to think about. How often do you know the right thing to do? And how often do you know the right thing to do and choose to do it? Now see, there's 2 elements there. There's knowing the right thing to do, and there's choosing the right thing to do. And they go together sometimes, sometimes they don't. I think many of us can look back on times when we knew the right thing and still chose not to do it. And I'm going to share one of those with you guys today. And it actually happened right here when I was in middle school. So back in 7th grade, I wasn't in a lot of sports. I did soccer for 5 years when I was in elementary school. I did football for 1 year. But the thing that I loved was Nerf. Any Nerf fans in here? It's still cool. I still play it with my roommates sometimes in college. It is a thing in college. Love it. And I thought, what can my friends and I do for fun? You know, I'm not a sports guy. I don't want anyone to feel excluded, but I want us to be able to get together and have a really good time. And I had a good group of friends at Central Middle School in Wayzata. And I thought, we should do a Nerf war. That'd be awesome. But where can you do a Nerf war, right? You need a really large space to do a Nerf war. I thought, what large spaces do I know? Well, my mom works at a church, and maybe she would let me have a Nerf war there, just maybe. So I thought, okay, I'll ask my mom. And I went up to her and I said, Mom, I said, Annette, can I have a Nerf war with my friends at Woodridge? Would that be okay? And she said, sure, for sure you can. And I'm like, yes, let's go. Like if you guys see, I was very passionate about Nerf. But she said the only condition was that I pick up every Nerf dart throughout the church so that it looked like my friends and I were never there. That was the only condition. I said, sure, why not, right? No big deal. So shout out to my mom for letting me have a Nerf war at her place of work when I was in 7th grade. Amazing. Yes. And so my friends came. Yeah. Oh yeah, you are. So my friends came and we had an awesome time on a Saturday. And we had battles for like 3 hours. And we were in all the rooms around church, even in here. We did the Nerf war. And we were shooting between the aisles and everything, over the seats, ducking behind them. Up on stage, I don't think we were supposed to do that, but we did it, and it was fun. And we had a fantastic day. And at the end, we were like, all right, so we got to clean up. And everybody, all my friends, took different parts of the building to pick up. Some people went downstairs. Some people went in the cafe out there. Some people went where you guys were hanging out and got checked in. And the place that I was responsible for was in the auditorium, right here. And after 3 hours of Nerf wars, I was tired, right? And I already picked up the obvious ones. Like I had looked down here, and I looked, I kind of looked around like this, and I was like, oh, there's one, and I picked it up. And I thought, I don't see any more. Maybe if I just tell my mom I didn't look that, or if I just tell my mom that I got them all, I don't have to look that hard. She wouldn't know the difference. So I had a choice. My responsibility was to pick up the auditorium. I had gotten all the easy ones. I could choose to put in the extra 10 to 15 minutes, get on my hands and knees and look down every aisle or row. I mean, not something you want to do, but that would be what I promised my mom. I said I would pick up the church. Or the easy thing to do would just be to leave and lie. So I went out into the lobby and I said, yeah, Mom, I checked. Oh, I checked everywhere. And that was it for the day. We went home, and like I said, that was on a Saturday. And I mean, Sunday comes after Saturday, you guys, and something happens at church on Sunday. So this place is pretty packed. It was a Sunday, 2 services. My mom went to work. I actually didn't go to church a lot when I was that age. But Sunday was the next day. My mom was at church from 7 to noon, and I didn't go. But I remember sitting at home, and I was at the counter. And when she came home, when she came through the door, my mom is usually like a really joyful person. But when she came through the door after that day, she looked at me right away. I could tell it was not a good day. And she walks up to me, and she stops, and she gets quiet, and she looks at me, and she says, guess what was on the stage while the pastor was speaking today? It was one of many found in the auditorium. I knew I had made a grave mistake at that point. I made the wrong choice, and I got in a little trouble for it, but I learned my lesson, that's for sure. And moral of the story, if you ever have a Nerf war in a church, make sure to triple, quadruple check the room where thousands of people will be looking the next day. It's a pretty important part of it. But man, it was just so easy to not look for the extra 10 minutes. So easy to make that decision and just say, I'm not going to do it. I'll just lie and get away with it. And like, she won't know. The right thing to do would be to have looked more carefully. And I think we can all agree that doing the right thing isn't always easy. It's often not exciting, fun, or popular. And in my case, it required extra work and effort. And just a little bit, to be honest. But man, that little bit can feel like a lot sometimes. That little bit of extra effort. Doing the right thing is hard. And I think that's because it often costs us something. For me, it was time and energy. For you, being honest with your parents, coaches, or teachers is the right thing. But you might get in trouble. The cost might be punishment or consequence. Maybe the right thing is watching younger siblings when your parents ask, doing the dishes, doing the laundry when they ask. But the cost? You lose some time to hang out with friends, play video games, do sports, whatever. The freedom to do what you want with your time, that's the cost. And the reality is, we've been in situations where we had to choose if we are going to do the right thing. We've all been there, and we will be there. We have to choose what the right thing is. Now, it's not always hard. Sometimes it's easy. Other times, it's complicated. Other times, we don't even know what the right thing is. And those are the hard times for me. I like to know. So here's the question. What can we do today, right now, to help us be prepared to choose doing the right thing no matter what? Even when it's unclear, even when we don't know what the costs are, even if the costs might be a lot, how can we make good decisions that will positively impact the bigger picture or the wide angle of our lives? Last week, we also talked about the big picture of a guy named Joseph in the Bible. And we talked about how we can know this with certainty that God is with us always, even when we can't see the big picture. Even through the story you read about Joseph, it was pretty rough. And through it, God was with him, and the Bible said that. And there was a bigger picture, even if he couldn't see it. God knew, and God wanted the best for Joseph. And his story ends up being pretty incredible. I'll tell you about it later today. But we get back to Joseph's story, and we're going to read a little bit more about a time in Joseph's life that gives us an idea of how to do the right thing when it's really hard to do. And here's where we're picking up with this in the story. So Joseph was just sold into slavery to a group of traders, and eventually this powerful Egyptian guy named Potiphar bought Joseph. I didn't know that name. If your name is Potiphar in this room, let's talk after the service. I would love to hear how your life has been. But the pronunciation will be up on the screen in a minute, and basically, it's Potiphar. That's how you say it. There's no fancy Egyptian way to say it. But Potiphar was a big shot, and everyone knew him. He was a leader in Egypt. And Joe worked for Potiphar for a while. And he was working for him, and he was working for him, and he was working for him. And after a while, Joe got enough trust with Potiphar, where Potiphar put Joe in charge of Potiphar's entire palace and everything he owned. So things seem to be looking up a bit for Joseph. He was once in the middle of a hard situation. Last week we talked about he was at the bottom of a pit, and now he's a super powerful guy, and this rich guy is trusting him with all of his rich dude stuff. But the story's about to take a turn. So some context, they're probably in a palace, like I said. Potiphar lives there. Potiphar's wife lives there too. And Joseph is working for Potiphar, and he's built up all this trust. And Potiphar is away from the palace. doing something else. So we'll dive in at Genesis 39:6, the first book of the Bible. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while Potiphar's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." So Joseph's just working hard for his boss, just trying to do the right thing. He's a good-looking guy. And when suddenly his boss's wife asked him to do something that is not okay, something meant just for Potiphar and Potiphar's wife, she was basically inviting Joseph to have an affair. It's a pretty complicated invitation. Now let's just pause for a second and put this in today's terms, because that name Potiphar throws me off so much. Say your best friend's boyfriend or girlfriend started snapping or texting you, asking you to hang out with them on the side. Maybe they're cute or handsome, like Potiphar's wife thought Joseph was, but they're with your best friend. You are not to be hanging out with your best friend's boyfriend or girlfriend. And for them to invite you to do that, that is an invitation for you to do something that you know is not right. That is not the right choice. And that's where Joseph is at. He's been invited to do something that is not the right choice. And he has to make that choice. Potiphar has entrusted him with all of these different things, with all of the things that he owns. And this comes back to what we discussed at the beginning, those two main questions. Do you know what is right? And are you going to act on that? Because you can know it and not act on it. And Joseph, well, we'll see what he does here in a minute, but he could do the wrong thing and say yes to Potiphar's wife, because that would be the easy choice, right? He could let the temptation of that invitation take over. He could weigh the options and think about what he could get away with. Maybe Potiphar will never find out. And that option comes with a big cost. Maybe Potiphar will never find out, but if he does, all that trust, gone. So Joseph decides to take a different route. And the story resumes in verse 8 through 10 here. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, Potiphar does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. So Joseph's kind of highlighting there the trust that Potiphar has put in him with all this rich guy stuff. And here's the part that I want you to pay attention to. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So Joseph is basically saying to the wife, hey, your husband trusted me with all of his stuff and to be in his house and everything. How could I do such a wicked thing by accepting your request? And he takes it to another level. Joseph knows that this is not right. He says, how could I sin against God by accepting your request to have an affair? How could I do that? How could I break the trust with Potiphar? And instead of giving in to temptation and making the easy choice, Joe decided to do what is right. And what I think stands out even more than anything in this story is that Joe does it day after day. Potiphar's wife did not stop. The Bible says day after day she asked him, and he resisted temptation and made the right choice day after day. That'd be hard. Somebody asks you every day a temptation they place in front of you, and he resisted it. He fought it. What a guy. So Joe's awesome. And here's the rest of the story summarized. Potiphar's wife, who is clearly a little sus to begin with, is mad that Joseph made the right choice because it meant she didn't get what she wanted. So she lies to her husband Potiphar about something Joseph did, and Joseph gets thrown in prison. And that part of Joseph's life highlights something hard that is important to remember, and that's that doing the right thing doesn't always get you applause or approval. Sometimes it will come at a cost that seems unfair, like being sent to prison. But Joseph did the right thing anyway because of integrity. And you guys, I've been in college for 3 years, and I did not know the true definition of the word integrity until I wrote this message. So we're kind of learning this together. Integrity is doing the right thing regardless of the cost. Joseph couldn't see the big picture. He didn't know the cost of doing the right thing, which was for him to be thrown in prison. He didn't know that. But Joseph didn't need to know. He was faithful and had integrity. The Bible does say that even when Joseph was in prison, the Lord was with him, and the Lord blessed him and gave him opportunities. And in the end, through this crazy story, Joseph was put in charge of the whole land of Egypt, right next to the king, in power. He went from a bottom of a pit He went from the bottom of a pit to a position of all power. But he didn't know that would happen when he chose to do the right thing. Joseph knew that choosing to do the right thing was the best decision no matter what happened next, whether it was being locked up in a prison or a better situation. And that's something that we can all learn from Joseph. Even when we can't see the bigger picture, we should do the next right thing. Joe didn't know the bigger picture. He didn't know all of God's plan for his life. He didn't know if it would turn out good, bad. He didn't know what would happen. But he chose to do the next right thing and hold on to his integrity. So in our lives, when facing temptation or difficult decisions, or when we're struggling to make the next right choice, how can we do what Joseph did and do the next right thing? And there's kind of two steps to this. The first step is to see your situation. What situation are you in where you need to do the next right thing? Maybe it's a relationship that's starting to push boundaries. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding with your parents. Maybe a friendship that needs to change. Whatever it is, the first step is to see the situation and understand that a choice needs to be made. How would I know that the right thing to do is to pick up that can if I didn't see it? If I didn't know it existed, if I didn't see the situation, how would I know there was a right choice to be made? You need to see the situation before you can even move on to step 2. Because once you see it, then you can move on to identifying the next right thing. Do you need to tell something to a parent? Ask a friend for help. Apologize to someone. Start being kind to someone. In your situation, what is the next right thing? That's the second part. That's an important part. Now, it's easy to let this go in one ear and out the other, and maybe you don't know where to start. So here's the final thing I want you to do to help you remember this. Tell someone the next right thing you're trying to do. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a leader, maybe it's a parent. Talk about the step that you're trying to take. Invite them to check in with you about it. Let them into that situation. And if you don't want to tell someone, when I was in middle school, I don't know if I want to be talking about my situations with people. Write it down. Write it down, see what it looks like. See your situation so that you can know if there's a right choice to be made. The steps and decisions you take today will shape your life and future. And you're the only one who can choose to do the right thing. And as you get older, that responsibility, it becomes even bigger. Joseph shows that we don't have to see all of the big picture or the wide angle to make the right choice. And that's the hard part for me, because I like to know what's going to happen. I like to know this is going to happen then so I can make this choice because that's best for this part of my future. But that's not always the truth in life. And reality is we won't always know. But like we discussed last week, we know that God always wants the best for us and is working for our good. So take it day by day, choice by choice. And even when you can't see the bigger picture, focus on what you can do. That's the key to doing the next right thing, you guys. That's the key. Focus on what you can do. I couldn't resist. All right, I'm going to pray and then I'll dismiss us for dinner. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for every person in this room and the purpose you have for their life, the perfect picture you have, even if they don't know what all of it looks like yet. I thank you for the story of Joseph that we get to read about through the lows and the highs, how you are with us and you are always working for our good. Lord, I pray that as the hearts of these students in this room heard this message tonight, that you would just help something in their mind to stick out, to stick with them, so that they can make the right choice that leads to that perfect picture that God has for their life. Lord, it's hard to know the right thing to do sometimes. And even if you know both options, God, you know these decisions are difficult. In the Bible, you say that the next right choice, if we don't know, is to love. You say the entire Bible hangs on that. To love you and to love people. And Lord, I pray that you would just be with these students as they leave this room tonight. And just help them to feel you at work in their lives and get them excited about the perfect picture that you have for them in the near and distant future. In Jesus' name, amen.